Alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah. Sweets, caught it hit. Alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah. Sweets, caught it hit. I just want pull up in coops. I just want more for loose. I just be dripping in cool. I just be tripping in news. Kick it with goons. I just be smoking the fumes. I just might fly to the moon. I just get high like balloons. I just be out making moves. I just be sipping that juice. I just be spending for loose. I just be dripping in juice. I just be wet like I'm pools. I just don't care about no rules. I'm just a far with a tool. I just be killing you news. All of my guns hit that blue. Fortnite I'm getting a loot. Dropping the top on my coupe. Coupe and it came with no roof. Yeah, I just give it my juice. Say I hit a lick, alhamdulillah. Oh, you're getting dead. Alhamdulillah, 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 alhamdulillah.
So I've been daily driving the Ranger for a little bit because someone's borrowing my car. For right now, I feel like it's about time I have some fun with it. Oh shit! Okay, I did not mean to do that. Hi, this is the new motor for the Juggernaut. We can probably go over there and do a disassembly video, like an autopsy on the old motor. There's some pretty good carnage on the other motor. Yeah, I can pull this apart. So. This is the original motor that Jerry had put in this truck. So this motor, this is all on a trophy truck engine program. They run the motors for roughly 1,500 miles, and then everything gets cycled out, and they build a brand new engine basically every 1,500 miles. So all these old parts that are, still technically good, but they've timed out for their purposes, those went into this motor. These are what these are called. These are Yates C3 heads. These come off of like a NASCAR Cup car. So it's got all this. I mean, this is all NASCAR stuff. Like this whole girdle here. these billet rocker arms, all of this stuff comes straight off of a NASCAR Cup car engine. Oh wow, I didn't even see that before. Oh, no way, no way. Ah. I didn't even see this before. We took this all apart, and that is supposed to be in there, and it's definitely not supposed to look like that. So this is a problem right here. This is definitely a problem. This is not good, not good. There's all sorts of pieces. So there's different, there's always different like degrees of how blown up a motor is, and probably the worst one is when you say a motor has become scattered, right? So if you notice, like I pull this piece, this is a piece of the valve seat. Notice this one came out of this cylinder here. This piece came out of this cylinder here. Let's see what else we got. See if there's any other surprises in any of these other holes. Okay, that's not supposed to be in there. But look at it, we found the other half to that one. So that's kind of cool. I think that's probably where the term scattered, because there's a piece in here and in here and in there. It started from here. I don't know if you can see in there, but yeah, we can see it. There's some chaos. There's some bad things happening.
Wait, can you shine the light on it one more time?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's not good. The valve should definitely not be pointing in that direction. There shouldn't be shrapnel sticking out of the hole right there. That's not good. Now I'm pretty sure engine guys watching this video are gonna yell because they're gonna be like, "You mixed them all up." But once we pull this off, you'll see why. I don't think you really care that much about mixing them up. Yeah, look at this. I don't know if you can see. So inside these valve covers, there's, well, you see on the other one, there's an oil line that comes up from the feed in the block right here, goes into this port, machined into this whole flange here. Oh, can you see those? Can you see the holes right there? Like there's little holes drilled every couple inches in this valve cover. Okay. So what that does, which is pretty rad, is oil is going to come in here and it's actually going to squirt out of those little holes onto each one of these valves right here. Because normally all this top end stuff is just oiled by splash. There's oil that comes up through the push rod and just kind of dribbles down, but there's no direct oiling. So for this is all NASCAR stuff. I mean, this is a motor that's supposed to last, 500 miles doing, 9,000 RPM the whole time. So this is all old school NASCAR stuff, which I always thought these valve covers these are pretty awesome. Got the little oil squirters in there, just some cool tech stuff. We'll pull this side apart. Okay. So I'll tell you right now, that's not supposed to look like that. This piston here is definitely not supposed to have a hole in it. So all of the oil that's supposed to be in the bottom end, the oil pan and the crankcase is just shooting out. The crazy thing to look at is like, you can see how much debris went in all of the other cylinders. Like if we pull that cylinder head off, every single piston looks the same as that. They're all just beat up. So here's what happened. So you can see this combustion chamber here, right? This big one here is your intake valve. This small one is your exhaust valve. It's not supposed to be jammed into the middle of the cylinder head like that. So I don't know what happened first, if the valve broke and then it took the other one out. I don't know if the piston tagged the valve. There was no, it never got over revved. The rev limiter on this thing's set way low for longevity. Anyways, so I really don't know, still don't know exactly what happened. But yeah, you can see just look at the damage that all that stuff did in there. So we'll see if this cylinder head is fixable. This was sitting in that cylinder, this one was sitting in that cylinder, and this one was sitting in this cylinder.
It'd be way too much to fix this.
Robert said his guy can weld up that head and fix it.
Oh, yeah? It's a billet head, huh?
I mean, it's an aluminum head, but he says he can fix that. It definitely sucks that that happened. Luckily, I got a buddy who works at a trophy truck shop, and they recently switched their engine package to a different supplier, so they had several of their old motors available. So we picked up a trophy truck motor to put in the Juggernaut. So this is an actual trophy truck motor. This came out of a competitive top level trophy truck. It's a small, it's still a 351 based Ford motor. It has the same heads that the old motor had on it. The whole point of doing this motor is it's basically like a plug and play swap. There was a lot of talk on this truck over the years when Jerry had it of putting an LS in it, which definitely would have been nice, because with the LS we would have gotten fuel injection, we would have gotten availability, because I mean, you can order an LSX 454 crate engine, you know, pretty easily. I mean, you can literally call Summit and order a motor. So these motors are completely 100% custom. Like, there's literally nothing on this motor that's off the shelf. It's definitely this is definitely going to make a lot more power than the LS motor will. Also, this motor engine dynoed 875 horsepower, so it should be right around 650 in the truck. This setup that's on this motor, they call this an 8-stack. It's basically individual throttle bodies. The old setup was just one carburetor. It feeds through the intake manifold, distributes the fuel and air mixture to all the cylinders. The thing runs. The problem with the carburetor is you don't get completely even fuel distribution no matter what. So there's always going to be cylinders that are richer, leaner, whatever. So this setup here eliminates all that. Each cylinder has its own air source, its own fuel injector, its own throttle blade, everything. Like, each one of these cylinders has its own induction system. The benefit of this is that your throttle response is very fast. You will make a ton of power on the top end. Drivability wise, you know, like, it's not meant for a street vehicle. The fuel economy is terrible. We'll probably get down to about 1.5 miles per gallon on this setup. So it's definitely a good thing we got the fuel set up on the chase truck already, because this thing, it's not going to get very good fuel economy. But this motor does make 875 horsepower. So the trophy truck that it came out of, they said it did 144 on the lake bed at Parker. So it's gonna be scary. One of the nicest updates on this setup is that we actually have a serpentine belt system instead of the old school V belts. So the accessories package on this thing is very nice, very compact. There's a lot of cool stuff on this motor. Like, if you just look around, there's 2 separate sensors for the crank trigger. That's another thing, is we get rid of the distributor, so no more distributor, no more cap and rotor, none of that BS. Now we have a Hall effect style pickup on the crank. There's 2 sensors on that, so we have redundant sensors. There's 2 cam position sensors that are driven off of that. We have individual coil packs instead of the distributor and the old school MSD coils. The other nice thing was, if you look down here, we actually have, for the engine mounting, this is just basically what they call a front plate setup. So in between the motor and the transmission on this, there's basically an aluminum plate that gets sandwiched in between. That's your motor mount. This front plate bolts onto the front of the motor, and that's what mounts the front of the whole assembly. It's just, you know, it's just this mount right here. Before, there's engine mounts that actually went underneath here, and the problem was, this truck, it's not the most rigid chassis, because this motor and everything is really large, just like it takes up a lot of space. So there's not a lot of triangulation and structure in this setup, which actually we made it kind of worse because we cut some stuff out. But we're gonna add some structure back in it, and we're gonna strengthen this thing up. But it's very nice going to this, because on the old motor, the block was actually cracked because the front of the truck twists and moves, and when the motor is completely solidly bolted in like that, the engine becomes what's called a stressed member. A lot of road race cars run stressed member construction, which means the motor is actually a structural part of the chassis. So some motors are not designed, most motors aren't designed for that. And if it's not designed for that, you're gonna have problems with, you know, anything from the head gaskets, interface shifting, the bearing tolerances are gonna go away. You're just gonna have a lot of problems with just stuff moving. So this setup right here is worlds better than the old stuff. The old engine mounting was not very good on this. There was a lot of stuff that just wasn't very great. So I got everything's cut out. We're ready to drop this motor in and lock it up. So let's drop this thing in.
No, on average, how long does it take for you to swap in a new motor?
Another thing about this whole process that we're doing right now is I'm trying to streamline this entire process, right? The way that I'm going to rebuild the whole engine cage in the truck, it's going to make it so I can pull this motor out by myself. Well, I mean, you'll see how fast this thing goes in, and it'll come out, you know, exactly the same. I mean, on a good setup, you should be able to change the entire motor out in a couple hours, right? Like on a trophy truck, you should be able to swap a motor, you know, part of the way through a race and still be able to, you know, keep going and finish the race. So there's just little things like this whole front mounting setup. I mean, you'll see hopefully how easily this thing goes back together. The mid plate with the dowel pins and the way everything lines up, it just makes it super easy just to stab the motor in there. So we'll see how this thing goes in there now. This is definitely much easier with two people, but I figure if I can put this motor in by myself, that means it's pretty good. Let's see. Okay, well, it fits in there. I'm going to show you the air filter setup that goes on top of this motor. So we got these nice billet air cleaner bases. We have these filters. They slip on there like that. They get bolted down here, obviously. But check this out. This thing weighs, I don't know, maybe a pound, maybe. This whole shroud goes over this whole assembly like that. And that's it.
Then you just cut the whole hood out.
That's where the hood pin is. So we're going to cut, the entire hood is going to be cut out from the hood pins in. Which is pretty funny because at Mint 400 Tech, the tech guy yelled at us about not having the center of the engine bay covered. So here you go, Mint 400 Tech guy. We fixed it. This motor should make about 150 horsepower more than the old motor. It definitely didn't need this in the slightest, but you know,
fuck it.
we could, so there it is. So there you go. There's how to put a trophy truck motor in your 1450 truck.
بسبوس عاشق بسه ويدلعها بسبوسة بسبوس عاشق بسه ويدلعها بسبوسة يلحقها من بيت البيت ويقول اعطيني بوسة يلحقها من بيت البيت ويقول اعطيني بوسة بسبوس عاشق بسه